The reluctant arrangement, just this one dinner, sweetheart. For me? Patricia Parker's voice carried that particular blend of hope and guilt only mothers could perfect. Zoe cradled her phone against her shoulder, while misting her collection of exotic ferns. Mom, I've told you 1,000 times I don't need to be set up with anyone. It's not a setup. It's a dinner party. The Caldwells are old friends, and they happen to have a very nice son who's recently moved back to town. Zoe rolled her eyes at her umbrella plant. With a law degree and perfect teeth, I assume. Actually, he's a financial analyst. Her mother's voice brightened. And he just bought a condo downtown. The mounting stack of student loan notices on Zoe's kitchen counter seemed to grow taller at the mention of financial stability. Her botanist salary at the underfunded university research department barely covered her rent, let alone the educational debt that had financed her doctorate in rare plant species. Mom, I appreciate the concern, but I already told Helena you'd be there. The finality in her mother's tone was unmistakable. Friday at 7. Wear that navy dress that brings out your eyes. After hanging up, Zoe slumped onto her couch, surrounded by the jungle of plants that were both her passion and her only reliable roommates. At 28, she knew her mother meant well. Patricia had raised her alone after her father's death 15 years ago and wanted security for her daughter. But Zoe had never been interested in the traditional path her mother envisioned. Friday arrived with unseasonable rain, matching Zoe's mood as she pulled her weathered sedan into the circular driveway of the Caldwell mansion. The estate sat on the outskirts of the city, a remnant of old money that made her increasingly aware of her sensible shoes and the one decent cocktail dress she owned. Navy, as instructed. You made it. Helena Caldwell air-kissed both her cheeks in the marble foyer. Patricia said you might be running late. Always buried in those plants of yours, I hear. Zoe forced a smile. Thank you for inviting me, Mrs. Caldwell. Helena, please. Now let me introduce you around. My son Michael is dying to meet you. The next hour was a blur of polite small talk with strangers whose names and faces blended together. Michael Caldwell proved to be exactly as advertised. Handsome, successful, and about as intellectually stimulating as watching paint dry. After his 15-minute monologue about investment portfolios, Zoe excused herself to find the restroom. Instead, she slipped through French doors onto a dimly lit terrace. The rain had stopped, leaving the garden glistening under moonlight. She inhaled deeply, savoring the petrichor scent that always calmed her nerves. Escaping to, the deep voice startled her. In the shadows near a large potted plant sat a man she hadn't noticed before, tall and lean, with dark hair that fell carelessly over one eye. He looked as out of place at this gathering as she felt. I wasn't escaping, Zoe replied automatically. Just getting some air. His laugh was low and genuine. Fair enough. Though if you were escaping Michael's dissertation on municipal bonds, I wouldn't blame you. Her lips twitched despite herself. You heard that? I think they heard it in the next county. He stood moving into the soft light spilling from the house. His features were striking, sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes that seemed to shift between blue and gray like stormy skies. I don't think we've met, she said. I'm Zoe Parker. He hesitated briefly. Theo. No last name offered. Well, Theo, since we're both getting some air, want to see something interesting? Without waiting for a response, Zoe moved toward the garden's edge where she'd spotted something unusual. Look at this, she said, kneeling beside a cluster of plants. A Decorysandra thursiflora, blue ginger. It shouldn't be able to grow in this climate. Theo crouched beside her, close enough that she caught the subtle scent of sandalwood. They've created a microclimate, he observed, gesturing to the carefully arranged stones and water features. Heat retention and humidity control. Zoe looked at him with new interest. You know plants? I know a little about a lot of things, he said vaguely, but his fingers moved with unexpected gentleness as they traced the plant's vibrant blue flowers. Though nothing compared to what you seem to know, Dr. Parker. How did your passion gave you away. Nobody gets that excited about Decorysandra unless they've spent years studying botany. A hint of a smile softened his features. And there's a dirt smudge on your wrist that you missed. Zoe self-consciously rubbed at her wrist but found herself smiling. Guilty as charged. Though the doctor part doesn't pay nearly as well as one might hope. Money doesn't always correlate with value, Theo said, his tone shifting to something more serious. What area do you specialize in? adaptive botanical systems for climate change mitigation, essentially plants that can survive extreme conditions while maintaining biodiversity. Zoe surprised herself with her candor, not exactly cocktail party conversation. I know. On the contrary, Theo replied. It might be the only worthwhile conversation happening here tonight. For the next half hour, they discussed everything from genetic modification to sustainable agriculture, Zoe's initial wariness giving way to genuine engagement. Theo asked insightful questions that challenged her thinking, displaying knowledge that went well beyond casual interest. You never said what you do, she finally remarked. Theo's expression closed slightly. Nothing as important as your work. Before she could press further, Helena Caldwell's voice rang out. There you are, Theo. I've been looking everywhere. She bustled onto the terrace, looking between them with undisguised interest. I see you've met our guest of honor. Theo straightened, his demeanor shifting subtly. Just discussing the remarkable garden. Oh, Theo doesn't give himself enough credit, Helena said to Zoe. His company is doing revolutionary things with sustainable agriculture. That's why I invited him tonight. My company? Zoe repeated, confused. Helena's eyes widened. You didn't introduce yourself properly, did you? Typical. She turned to Zoe with the air of someone delivering a grand revelation. Zoe, this is Theodore Ravenwood, CEO of Celestial Innovations. The name hit Zoe like a physical force. Celestial Innovations was the cutting-edge tech company, making headlines for their breakthrough work in sustainable technologies. Their botanical research division was legendary and notoriously impossible to get into. Mr. Ravenwood is quite reclusive, Helena continued, clearly enjoying Zoe's shock. Getting him to attend a dinner party is like capturing a unicorn. Theo, or Theodore apparently, looked distinctly uncomfortable. Helena exaggerates. Hardly. When you mentioned needing a specialized botanist for your new project, I immediately thought of Patricia's daughter. Helena beamed at her matchmaking prowess. Though I had no idea you two would hit it off so well. Zoe's mind raced. The dinner party wasn't about setting her up with Michael. It was a job interview she hadn't known she was having. Theo's expression was unreadable as he studied her. Dr. Parker and I were having an interesting discussion about adaptive botanical systems, he said carefully. Perhaps we should continue it in a more professional setting. Absolutely. Helena clapped her hands. Zoe, you must come to Celestial's research facility. Theo's work is going to change the world, and with your expertise, who knows what you might accomplish together. As Helena continued extolling the virtues of collaboration, Zoe caught Theo's eye. The earlier warmth had been replaced by cool assessment, the businessman evaluating a potential asset. Yet something else lingered beneath the surface, a flicker of the genuine connection they'd shared among the blue gingers. I don't know, Zoe said slowly, thinking of her struggling career, her mounting debt, and the unexpected path opening before her. My current research position pays terribly and offers no advancement, Theo finished, his direct gaze challenging her. Celestial could offer you resources you've only dreamed of, Dr. Parker. Call my office Monday, he continued, handing her a sleek business card that appeared from nowhere. If you're interested in doing work that matters. As his fingers brushed hers, Zoe felt an inexplicable spark, not just of professional possibility, but of something more complex and unsettling. This was not at all the arrangement her mother had intended, but as Theo turned to leave the terrace, Zoe couldn't shake the feeling that fate had just dealt her a hand she hadn't seen coming. Behind them, the blue ginger flowers seemed to glow slightly in the moonlight, witnesses to the beginning of something neither scientist could have predicted in their most experimental hypotheses. The unexpected opportunity. Zoe's apartment, typically a sanctuary of green tranquility, felt unusually confining as she paced between her potted specimens Monday morning. The business card Theodore Ravenwood had given her sat on her kitchen counter, its sleek black surface and embossed silver lettering catching the light each time she passed. This is crazy, she told her favorite monstera. I can't seriously be considering this. Her phone chimed with a text from her mother. How was dinner? Michael asked for your number. Zoe groaned. Her mother still had no idea about the real purpose of the dinner party or her encounter with the enigmatic CEO of Celestial Innovations. Before she could craft a response, her phone rang with an unknown number. Dr. Parker? The crisp, efficient voice belonged to a woman. This is Lily Starling, Mr. Ravenwood's personal assistant. He mentioned you might be calling today, but he suggested I reach out instead. I haven't actually decided if I'm interested, Zoe admitted, surprised by the preemptive contact. Perhaps this will help with your decision. Lily's tone shifted, becoming almost musical. Celestial is prepared to offer you a starting salary of $150,000 full benefits and immediate student loan repayment. Zoe nearly dropped the phone. That was triple her current salary. The position would require relocation to our main research facility. Lily continued. It's quite remote, but housing would be provided on site. What exactly would I be working on? Zoe asked, her scientific curiosity finally overcoming her shock. I'm afraid I can't discuss details over the phone. The project is classified. There was a slight pause. Mr. Ravenwood was quite impressed by your knowledge of adaptive botanical systems. He believes you're exactly who we've been looking for. By that afternoon, Zoe had resigned from her university position, packed 2 suitcases of essentials, and found herself in a sleek company helicopter, flying over dense forest toward the mountains. The impulsiveness of her decision terrified her, but the weight of financial burden lifting from her shoulders made it impossible to regret. From the air, Celestial's research facility appeared to emerge organically from the mountainside, a marvel of sustainable architecture with living walls, solar arrays, and what looked like experimental greenhouse domes nestled into the terrain. As the helicopter descended onto a landing pad, Zoe caught sight of a tall figure waiting below. Theo Ravenwood looked different here, more at ease in dark jeans and a simple gray button-down than he had in evening wear, though no less imposing. Welcome to Celestial, Dr. Parker, he greeted her as she stepped onto solid ground, the helicopter's downdraft whipping her hair around her face. I trust the journey was comfortable. It certainly beat my usual bus commute, Zoe replied, attempting to tame her wind-blown curls. Though I'm still not entirely sure why I'm here. A flicker of something, amusement perhaps, crossed his features. Directness. I appreciate that. He gestured toward the main building. Let's get you settled, and then we can discuss why I believe you're essential to our work. The facility interior was even more impressive than its exterior. Open spaces filled with natural light. Laboratories equipped with technology Zoe had only read about. And everywhere plants. Not decorative office foliage, but carefully maintained specimens under precise growing conditions. Your quarters, Theo announced, leading her to what appeared to be a small but luxurious apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the forest. The living quarters were designed to integrate with the natural environment. We find it helps maintain mental clarity during intensive research periods. It's beautiful, Zoe admitted, setting down her bags. But you still haven't told me what exactly I'll be doing here. All in good time. First, there's someone I'd like you to meet. He touched a panel on the wall. Lily, would you join us? Moments later, the door slid open to reveal a slender woman with striking features. Zoe's first impression was of unusual grace. Lily moved with fluid precision as if gravity affected her slightly differently. Her skin had a subtle purplish undertone that Zoe assumed was a rare condition, complemented by remarkably vibrant eyes. Dr. Parker, this is Lily Starling. She's not just my assistant, but a key researcher on our project. It's wonderful to finally meet in person, Lily said, her voice carrying the same musical quality it had over the phone. Lily has a unique perspective on botanical adaptation that I believe will complement your expertise, Theo explained. She'll show you to the main laboratory after you've had some time to settle in. When Theo departed, Zoe turned to Lily. Is he always so mysteriously vague? Lily's laugh was like wind chimes. Theo is cautious. Our work here is revolutionary, and he's been burned before by those seeking to exploit his innovations. What exactly is our work? Zoe pressed. Creating life that can survive where none should, Lily replied, her unusual eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. Plants capable of thriving in conditions that would kill ordinary species. Extreme heat, cold, drought, even toxic environments. That's actually my specialization, Zoe admitted, excitement building despite her reservations. But the genetic modifications required for such adaptations would be incredibly complex. Which is why we need you. Lily smiled. Theo has approaches to genetic adaptation that you've likely never encountered, but he needs someone who understands botanical systems at a fundamental level. 2 hours later, After changing into more practical clothes, Zoe followed Lily through a biometric security door into what appeared to be the heart of the research facility. The laboratory beyond was unlike any she had ever seen. A vast greenhouse merged with cutting-edge technology, where plants grew in controlled environments that simulated everything from Arctic tundra to desert conditions. "This is incredible," Zoe breathed, taking in the arrays of equipment and specimens. Some of these varieties shouldn't be able to coexist in the same facility. Yet they do. Theo's voice came from behind them. He had changed as well, now wearing a lab coat over his casual attire. "Because we've found ways to help them adapt beyond their natural limitations." He led her to a sealed chamber where a plant unlike anything Zoe had ever seen grew under purple-tinged light. Its structure resembled a cross between a succulent and a fern, with iridescent leaves that seemed to pulse with their own internal rhythm. "What is that?" she whispered, mesmerized. "The beginning," Theo replied, a rare smile transforming his usually stern features. "A hybrid capable of surviving in environments with minimal water, while absorbing carbon dioxide at 10 times the rate of normal plants. Imagine forests of these in drought-stricken regions, combating climate change while providing oxygen and eventually food." "But that's theoretically impossible," Zoe argued, professional excitement overcoming her usual reserve. "The genetic modifications needed to achieve those adaptations would be incompatible." "Unless you approach genetics from an entirely different paradigm," Lily interjected, exchanging a look with Theo that Zoe couldn't quite interpret. "This is why we needed you." "Dr. Parker," Theo said, his intensity almost magnetic, "your research on adaptive systems comes closest to what we're trying to achieve. You understand the challenges of creating plants that can thrive where they shouldn't. But my work has been theoretical," Zoe admitted. "I've never achieved results like this." "Because you haven't had the resources," Theo countered. "Or perhaps the right collaborators." As they guided her through the facility, explaining the project's ambitious goals of creating botanical solutions to climate change, food scarcity, and environmental degradation, Zoe found her scientific skepticism battling with undeniable evidence before her eyes. That evening, alone in her new quarters, Zoe stood at the window watching darkness descend over the forest. The facility's lights cast gentle illumination onto the surrounding trees, and in the distance, she could see one of the experimental greenhouse domes glowing with that same peculiar purple light. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Any news on that Michael boy?" Zoe smiled to herself, wondering how to explain that instead of finding a suitable husband at the Caldwell dinner party, she had somehow stumbled into the most extraordinary scientific opportunity of her career. And that the mysterious Theo Ravenwood, for all his aloofness, ignited something in her that had nothing to do with professional ambition. "No news on Michael," she typed back, "but I've taken a new position, something unexpected but exciting." As she set her phone down, her gaze drifted to the purple glow on the horizon, and she couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something significant Theo and Lily weren't telling her. Growing tensions. 3 weeks into her new position, Zoe found herself irrevocably changed by the work at Celestial. Each day brought new discoveries that challenged everything she thought she knew about botanical genetics. The hybrid species they were developing, affectionately nicknamed adaptives by the small research team, displayed characteristics that defied conventional scientific explanation. Working alongside, Theo proved both exhilarating and frustrating. His brilliant mind moved at dizzying speeds, jumping between concepts while expecting her to keep pace. Some days his intensity was inspiring. He would work beside her for hours, sleeve rolled up, hands steady as they manipulated delicate plant structures. Other days he retreated into cold silence, barricaded in his office for hours, emerging only to critique their progress with clinical detachment. "He's not always easy," Lily remarked one afternoon as they calibrated growth measurements for their newest prototype. "But there's no one who believes in this work more than Theo." "What happened to him?" Zoe asked, carefully monitoring a seedling's response to simulated drought conditions. "To make him so guarded?" Lily supplied, her graceful hands adjusting the environmental controls with practiced precision. "That's his story to tell, but I can say that Theo has reasons to protect his work. And himself." Zoe nodded, stealing a glance at Lily's unusual complexion, In certain lights, the purple undertones of her skin became more pronounced, especially when she was focused on her work. Zoe had initially assumed it was a rare condition, but now she wondered if it might be some kind of specialized pigmentation treatment related to their research. "How did you come to work with him?" Zoe asked. A shadow passed over Lily's features. "I arrived here 3 years ago. Theo gave me sanctuary when I needed it most. The rest, as you humans say, is history." Before Zoe could process the odd phrasing, an alarm blared through the laboratory. Red lights pulsed as security shutters began descending over the windows. "Perimeter breach," announced the automated system. "Security Protocol Alpha engaged." Lily's body tensed, her eyes darting to the security monitors. "This isn't a drill," she whispered. Theo burst through the laboratory doors, face taut with controlled urgency. "Get the primary samples into containment," he ordered. "Someone's attempting to access the east greenhouse." As Zoe hurried to secure their most sensitive specimens, Theo's hand caught her wrist. The unexpected contact sent a jolt through her that had nothing to do with the emergency. "Be careful with hybrid E7, he said, his voice low. "It's unlike anything in your experience." The intensity in his storm-gray eyes made her breath catch. "I know what I'm doing, Theo." His fingers lingered a moment longer than necessary. "I know you do. That's why you're here." While Theo went to coordinate with security, Zoe and Lily worked methodically to protect their research. Through the laboratory windows, Zoe glimpsed dark figures moving across the facility grounds, their forms barely visible in the deepening twilight. "Industrial espionage?" she asked Lily. "Worse," Lily replied grimly. "People who would weaponize what we're creating here." As they reached the high-security vault where the most advanced hybrids were kept, Lily's keycard failed to open the final door. "The security override must have affected the access protocols," she muttered. "There's another way," Zoe suggested, pointing to a maintenance duct. "It connects to the environmental control room behind the vault. We could access it from there." The cramped maintenance passage was barely large enough for them to crawl through. Zoe led the way, using her phone's flashlight to navigate the dark, narrow space. Behind her, Lily moved with surprising agility for someone navigating an unfamiliar, confined space. They had almost reached the access panel to the environmental control room when Zoe's light caught something unexpected, a small flowering plant growing impossibly in the darkness of the duct, its blossoms a luminescent purple that matched the unusual undertone of Lily's skin. "That's impossible," Zoe whispered, reaching out to touch the delicate bloom. "No plant could grow here without light or proper soil." "Zoe, don't," Lily began, but it was too late. The moment Zoe's fingers brushed the flower, images flooded her mind, stars in unfamiliar configurations, landscapes with impossible colors, and plants that moved with conscious intelligence. She jerked back, gasping, and turned to find Lily watching her with an expression of resigned sadness. "You're not—" Zoe struggled to articulate the impossible conclusion forming in her mind. "Human?" Lily finished quietly. "No. Not in the way you understand humanity." The revelation hung between them in the dusty darkness. Questions crowded Zoe's mind, but security alarms still blared throughout the facility. "The hybrids first," Lily said firmly. "We can discuss my origins after we've secured them." Remarkably focused despite her shock, Zoe continued to the access panel. They managed to enter the environmental control room and secure the vault from the inside, just as intruders breached the outer laboratory. Through the vault's surveillance system, they watched masked figures systematically photographing their research stations and downloading data from the main terminals. Halcyon Biotech. Zoe recognized the subtle logo on one intruder's equipment. Their arrival in sustainable agriculture technology. "They've been trying to infiltrate us for months," Lily confirmed. "But they have no idea what they're really looking for." Security forces eventually cleared the facility, but the breach left everyone on edge. Hours later, in Theo's office, Zoe finally confronted the truth she could no longer ignore. "Lily isn't human," she stated flatly, watching Theo's reaction. "And those plants we're developing, they're based on extraterrestrial biology, aren't they?" Theo didn't deny it. He looked exhausted, the weight of secrets visibly heavy on his shoulders. "I wanted to tell you once we knew we could trust you completely." "Trust?" Zoe's voice rose. "You brought me into a classified project involving alien technology without telling me. How is that trust?" Would you have believed me if I had told you on day one? Theo challenged. Or would you have thought I was insane and left immediately? That should have been my choice to make. Theo crossed to the window, gazing out at the facility grounds now crawling with additional security personnel. Lily's ship crashed near this property 3 years ago. She was a botanical scientist on her world, studying ways to help plants survive as her planet's ecosystem collapsed. He turned back to Zoe, his expression grave. I found her injured and offered her sanctuary in exchange for her knowledge. Together, we've been working to combine her world's botanical adaptations with Earth species to create plants that might help save both our worlds. The scope of what he was describing staggered Zoe. Why keep it secret, even from your own researcher? Because the last time I trusted someone with revolutionary research, they stole everything and tried to weaponize it. Bitterness edged his voice. My former partner, Adrian Hayes, took early prototypes of an environmental restoration system I developed and sold them to military contractors. People died because of what he did with my work. So you've been hiding here, working with actual alien technology, trusting no one? Zoe shook her head in disbelief. Not hiding, protecting. Theo moved closer, his intensity magnetic. Zoe, what we're creating could transform life on Earth. Clean air, sustainable food sources, environmental restoration. But in the wrong hands, the same adaptive capabilities could be weaponized to create plants that kill rather than nurture. Despite her anger at being kept in the dark, Zoe couldn't deny the significance of their work, or her growing feelings for the complicated man before her. The passion with which he protected their research only deepened her confusing attraction. I need to process this, she said finally. It's not every day you discover you're working with an extraterrestrial on plants that could save the world. Take whatever time you need, Theo replied. But please don't leave. The work we're doing, the work that only you can help us complete, is too important. As Zoe turned to go, his voice stopped her at the door. For what it's worth, bringing you here wasn't just about your scientific expertise. When she looked back questioningly, Theo continued. Working alongside you these past weeks has reminded me what it's like to trust again. The admission hung in the air between them, fraught with implications neither was ready to address. Zoe left without responding, her mind reeling with revelations about alien life, scientific breakthroughs, and the undeniable fact that despite everything, she was falling for Theodore Ravenwood. Later that night, Lily found Zoe in the observatory dome atop the main research building, gazing at the stars with new understanding. Which one is yours? Zoe asked quietly as Lily settled beside her. You can't see it from Earth, Lily replied. It's beyond what your astronomers call the Horsehead Nebula. Why did you come here? Lily's luminescent eyes reflected the starlight. Not by choice initially, but I've come to believe it was fate. My people have knowledge that could help Earth avoid the ecological collapse my world experienced. She hesitated. And Theo has a vision few humans share, using technology to heal rather than exploit. Is that why you stay? For the mission?